Welcome back. Today we're going to look at what facts were uncovered in my previous video, Resident Evil 4 Incubate. In my previous video, I looked at Resident Evil 4 Incubate, which is a supplementary book serving as a prequel to Resident Evil 4. The book is a diary written from the perspective of a new character named Rodrigo. Rodrigo is an occupant of Resident Evil 4's village, and he documents the events that lead up to the village's collapse.
Who are these people?
The story is a bit clunky in parts, and I had to cut sections out that didn't make sense. So I thought I'd make a video to explain what we'd learned. So coming up, here are 7 secrets we uncovered. During Chapter 10, Father Torres Mendez invites Rodrigo and the villagers to Sunday church. In the book, he's referred to as Lord Mendez and the village chief, but in the game he's often just called Chief Mendez. Father Mendez was a Catholic priest whose parish was in the village. A long sermon was held by Osmond Sadler. With his charisma, he compels the villagers to join Los Illuminados and take part in a blood cleansing ritual. The villagers are injected with an unknown substance that will cleanse their soul and purify their blood. Rodrigo is now convinced that if they do not participate in the ritual, then they cannot find a way to happiness. After the ceremony, Rodrigo has lunch with his friend from Chapter 5. His friend did not want to participate in the ritual and was angered by the cult's presence in the village. Rodrigo takes his anger as a sign the villagers need the ritual to find peace, and encourages his friend to take part. Salazar, the first Castellan, occupied the castle during the 1500s. In the nearby mountain region, there was a pagan community who performed human sacrifice rituals. They indoctrinated people with mind-control parasites named Las Plagas. Salazar led a small army and slaughtered followers of the cult, with some being tied up and executed, and others burned at the stake. The parasites were sealed away in an ancient tomb beneath the castle. In the 21st century, Salazar is praised as a folk hero. According to Rodrigo, the tale of his heroism has been passed down through generations. What happened to the children? In Chapter 12, Rodrigo's daughter has a seizure and dies. Other villagers fall ill, and over a few days all of the children in the village die. It's safe to assume that the children's bodies were too weak to host the Plaga, triggering fatal seizures. This explains why there are no children in Resident Evil 4. You never really see children in violent video games, unless you're playing this game.
Oh, this can't be good.
In the 4th chapter, Rodrigo's friend invites him over for lunch. His friend boasts about his new job excavating a nearby castle. We already knew the villagers helped with the excavation, as we see them in the mines in the game. There's also a note in the game, Luis Memo 2, which alludes to this. The note in the game seems to slightly contradict the events described in the book. Several years later, unexplainable convulsions started occurring among the villagers who helped with the excavation of Las Plagas. Then one day, all of a sudden, these villagers turned into violent savages. They later found out that it was caused by the Las Plagas. Although they appeared fossilized, they were able to survive the long years by lying in a dormant state at a cellular level, remaining in a spore-like form. Apparently during the excavation, the villagers inhaled spores and within their bodies, the parasites became active again. This is how the Las Plagas were resurrected. The book leads us to believe the villagers were all injected with the Plaga. But if the villagers inhaled the Plaga, it would explain how the friend who did not want to participate in the blood ritual became infected. Maybe Sadler just told Luis that the villagers had inhaled the spores rather than tricking them into receiving an injection so that he would continue his work. The villagers have rejected modern technology and chosen a simpler life where they can protect their culture and traditions. They stick to traditional methods of farming. In the villagers' culture, grandparents play an important role in teaching the children. They even choose their grandchildren's Christian names. The only modern machines they have are the trucks, and they have to trade crops in the neighbouring town to get fuel. After the villagers have finished the blood ritual, Lord Sadler tells the villagers his version of the first Castellan folktale. In his version of events, the first Castellan was jealous of the cult's righteousness, and he persecuted them. Ramon, the current 8th Castellan, is reinterpreted as a redeemed man, having freed the cultists. Rodrigo is convinced by the story, and feels that his family has been lied to for centuries. If you like what you're seeing on this channel so far, please leave a like. It would be much appreciated.
Thank you.
The story concludes with Plaga A hatching and exploding out of the head of one of the villagers. Rodrigo sees the horrific birth of the monster before him as a miracle gifted to the villagers by Lord Sadler. So I might take a break from Resident Evil for a video or two. I think my next video will be focusing on 7th generation video games. Because there were so many games released at once, a couple of horror games and flawed gems slip through the cracks and are stuck on those consoles. I'd also like to do a few shorter videos looking at cheap Steam games. I think we could all use a cheap distraction. Thanks for watching.